Let us imagine for a moment that you and your family have decided to finally take that once-in-a-lifetime vacation to the Big Apple, New York City. Once you arrive, you ascend One World Trade Center's observation deck, stroll through Times Square's neon corridors, and admire Manhattan's legendary skyline. Yet, little would you know that one family controls massive portions of these very landmarks. The Durst Organization owns 13 million square feet of prime Manhattan real estate, ranking their family in the top 50 of America's richest dynasties. But even these real estate mammoths of Manhattan harbor secrets that decades couldn't bury. Their eldest heir became a convicted murderer whose victims spanned 4 decades and multiple states. Therefore, on today's episode of Old Money Luxury, we reveal the shocking tale of Robert Durst, the billionaire who inherited everything except humanity, whose path from penthouse to prison left bodies in its wake. Robert Alan Durst represented one of the most shocking intersections of extreme wealth and violent crime in American history. Born into a real estate dynasty worth $8.1 billion according to Forbes, this heir became a convicted murderer whose decades-long crime spree finally ended with his death in prison in January 2022. The story encompasses not only multiple murders and disappearances spanning 4 decades, but also the profound impact on one of New York City's most prominent real estate families. The Durst Organization's empire includes ownership stakes in iconic buildings like One World Trade Center. The HBO documentary series The Jinx ultimately captured Durst's apparent confession when he said he killed them all, leading to his arrest and conviction after years of evading justice. This case illustrates how immense privilege and wealth could not ultimately shield a serial killer from accountability. Simultaneously, it devastated a family business empire built over more than a century. The Durst Organization stands as one of New York City's oldest and most successful family-run real estate companies, with roots tracing back to 1915. The dynasty began with Joseph Durst, a Jewish immigrant who arrived in the United States from Gorlice, Austria-Hungary, in 1902, with only $3 to his name. Working initially as a tailor in New York City, Joseph gradually built his wealth through careful business ventures. He eventually became a partner in a dress manufacturing company called Durst and Rubin in 1912. Joseph's real estate ambitions materialized in 1915 when he purchased his first building, the Century Building, at 1 West 34th Street, using profits from his business ventures. This modest beginning would eventually grow into a real estate empire that would define Manhattan's skyline. By 1926, Joseph had acquired the original Temple Emmanuel at 5th Avenue and 43rd Street, which was then the largest synagogue building in the United States. The building was demolished in 1927 to make room for commercial development. The same year, Joseph formally established the Durst Organization. Today, the Durst Organization owns and operates more than 13 million square feet of Class A Manhattan office and retail space. The company also manages 3 million square feet of residential rental properties, comprising almost 3,400 rental residences. The company's current portfolio is valued at approximately $6.7 billion. Office properties comprise 71% of the total value, elevator-related assets 13%, and condominiums 10%. The portfolio spans 56 properties, with 75% located in Manhattan and 23% in Queens. Notable high-profile holdings include One World Trade Center with a 10% ownership stake, One Bryant Park, and 4 Times Square. Yet from this empire of concrete and steel emerged Robert Durst, whose path would lead not to boardrooms, but to murder. In terms of financial performance, the Durst Organization generates an estimated annual revenue of $117,400,000. The company employs approximately 626 people across its vast portfolio of properties. Joseph Durst's journey from penniless immigrant to real estate magnate began with a decision that would reshape Manhattan's skyline for generations. In 1902, he stepped off a ship with $3 in his pocket, arriving from Gorlice, Galicia, in what was then Austria-Hungary. The young Jewish immigrant found work as a tailor in New York City's garment district, carefully saving every penny he could spare. His business acumen emerged early when he became a partner in Durst and Rubin, a dress manufacturing company, in 1912. The profits from this venture provided the capital for his first real estate purchase in 1915. The Century Building at 1 West 34th Street became the foundation stone of what would grow into a multi-billion-dollar empire. Joseph demonstrated remarkable timing and vision in his acquisitions throughout the 1920s. His purchase of Temple Emmanuel at 5th Avenue and 43rd Street in 1926 showed his willingness to make bold moves. This was the largest synagogue building in the United States at the time. Joseph demolished it just 1 year later to make way for commercial development, formally establishing the Durst Organization that same year. The company's growth accelerated with strategic acquisitions, including their first residential building at 5th Avenue and 85th Street in 1929. Even during the Great Depression, Joseph continued expanding, acquiring the Park Hill Theater in Yonkers, New York in 1936. The 1944 acquisition of 205 East 42nd Street proved particularly prescient, as this property would remain a cornerstone of their portfolio well into the 21st century. When Joseph died in 1974, his son Seymour inherited control during the challenging economic period of the 1973 to 1975 recession. Seymour transformed the company's scope and ambitions, focusing extensively on building skyscrapers throughout Manhattan. His innovations extended beyond real estate development into public consciousness. Seymour invented the National Debt Clock, a digital display showing the current United States national debt in real time. This invention reflected the family's engagement with broader civic and political spheres beyond their property holdings. Following Seymour's retirement in 1992 and his death in 1995, control passed to his son Douglas. Working alongside his nephew Jody, Douglas transformed the family business into one of Manhattan's most prominent real estate empires. The company's transformation of Times Square from a seedy red light district into a major tourist attraction during the 1990s exemplified their impact on Manhattan's urban development. Recent major financial transactions include a $1 billion financing package secured in 2017 for several office assets. The Durst Organization generates an estimated annual revenue of $117,400,000 and employs approximately 626 people. The company's approach to financing mirrors that of real estate investment trusts, allowing them to optimize their capital structure and pursue strategic acquisitions. But while Douglas built towers that touched the sky, his brother Robert was descending into darkness that began with a 7-year-old boy watching his mother step off a roof. Robert Alan Durst was born on April 12, 1943, in New York City, growing up in Scarsdale as the eldest son of real estate magnate Seymour Durst and his wife Bernice Hurst. His childhood shattered when he was 7 years old, and his mother died by suicide, jumping from the roof of the family's Scarsdale home. Robert later claimed to have witnessed this tragedy, asserting that moments before her death, his father walked him to a window from which he could see his mother standing on the roof. A 1953 psychiatrist's report on 10-year-old Robert mentioned personality decomposition and possibly even schizophrenia. Robert and his brother Douglas underwent counseling for sibling rivalry during their childhood, indicating ongoing family tensions and psychological challenges. Douglas later denied that Robert had actually witnessed their mother's suicide, creating additional questions about Robert's relationship with truth and reality from an early age. Despite growing up in extraordinary wealth and privilege, Robert's relationship with the family business remained sporadic and troubled. He studied economics at Lehigh University, graduating in 1965, before attending UCLA, where he formed friendships that would later prove significant. His relationship with Susan Berman, daughter of a mobster, began during these college years. After returning to New York City in 1973, Robert married Kathleen McCormick, a dental hygienist, and began working intermittently at the family business. Robert's first alleged crime occurred in 1982 with the disappearance of his wife, Kathleen "Kathy" McCormick Durst. The couple had married in 1973 when Robert was 30 and Kathy was just 19. By 1980, their marriage had significantly deteriorated, with friends and family reporting that Durst had become controlling and abusive toward his wife. Kathy told confidants that Robert had forced her to have an abortion and that she was considering divorce, though she felt constrained by what she described as an unfair prenuptial agreement. On January 6, 1982, after one assault, Kathy sought medical treatment at a hospital for bruises. The final confrontation occurred on January 31, 1982, when Kathy attended a party at her friend Gilberte Najami's house in Connecticut. During the party, she received an angry phone call from Robert and left early. Before departing, Kathy made a chilling prediction to her friend. "If something happens to me, check it out. I'm afraid of what Bobby will do." This statement would prove to be the last account of Kathy's movements that came from someone other than Robert himself. Robert waited until February 5, 1982, to report Kathy missing. His account claimed that Kathy had returned to their South Salem cottage on the night of January 31st, and that after an argument, she decided to return to the city. Kathy was just months away from graduating from medical school when she disappeared. Her body was never found, and though several people reported seeing or talking to someone they believed was Kathy after she supposedly returned to Manhattan, these sightings were never conclusively verified. The case eventually went cold due to lack of physical evidence, but suspicions about Robert's involvement never completely disappeared. During the media attention surrounding Kathy's disappearance, Susan Berman served as Robert's unofficial spokesperson, unaware that this loyalty would sign her own death warrant 18 years later. Susan Berman's murder in December 2000 represented the pivotal crime that would eventually lead to Robert Durst's conviction and imprisonment. Berman, who had been Robert's close friend since their days at UCLA, was found dead in her Beverly Hills home, shot execution style in the back of the head. The timing of her murder was particularly significant. It occurred just as police in Westchester, New York, had reopened their investigation into Kathy Durst's 1982 disappearance. Investigators had planned to interview Berman about her knowledge of the case. Prosecutors would later argue that Berman possessed dangerous knowledge about Robert's involvement in his wife's disappearance. They alleged that Berman had provided a false alibi for Robert following Kathy's disappearance and had served as his unofficial spokesperson during the initial investigation. In the days leading up to Berman's murder, Robert was engaged in extensive preparations that suggested premeditation. He was scrambling around the country, stockpiling money and setting up false identity because authorities had reopened the investigation into his wife's disappearance. Prosecutors revealed that Robert had begun stockpiling cash, stopped using his cell phone, and married a woman he had previously dated in what he called a marriage of convenience. According to witness testimony during Robert's trial, he had told Nick Chavin, a mutual friend, it was her or me regarding Berman, adding, "I had no choice." Following Susan Berman's murder, Robert fled to Galveston, Texas, where he adopted an elaborate disguise, living as a mute elderly woman. In 2001, Robert's elderly neighbor Morris Black was found dismembered, with body parts discovered floating in Galveston Bay in black garbage bags. During his 2003 trial for Black's murder, Robert testified that Black had pulled a gun on him and was shot during their struggle for the weapon. Despite the horrific nature of Black's dismemberment, a Texas jury acquitted Robert of murder charges, accepting his self-defense claim. He pleaded guilty to tampering with evidence for dismembering Black's body and discarding the parts, and also pleaded guilty to jumping bail. After a 45-day manhunt, he was arrested for shoplifting a chicken sandwich from a grocery store in Pennsylvania, just miles from where he had attended university. When arrested, he was found with thousands of dollars in cash in his rental car, along with cannabis and Morris Black's driving license. The HBO documentary series, The Jinx, The Life and Deaths of Robert Durst, which aired in 2015, proved to be the catalyst that finally brought Robert to justice. The six-part series, created by filmmaker Andrew Jarecki, provided an unprecedented look into Robert's life and the three deaths that had shadowed him for years. In the final episode, filmmakers confronted Robert with evidence that appeared to link him to Susan Berman's murder. After this confrontation, Robert retreated to a bathroom while still wearing his microphone, apparently unaware that he was still being recorded. Speaking apparently to himself, Robert was recorded saying, "There it is, you're caught, and what the hell did I do? Killed them all, of course." This moment became one of the most shocking revelations in true crime documentary history, providing what prosecutors would later characterize as a direct admission of guilt. FBI agents arrested him at a New Orleans hotel on March 14, 2015, just hours before the documentary's finale was scheduled to air. But his greatest enemy would prove to be his own failing body. The murder trial formally began in March 2020, but was suspended after only 2 days of testimony due to the COVID-19 pandemic. This unprecedented interruption resulted in a 14-month delay before the trial could resume in May 2021. During this extended period, Robert's health continued to decline significantly as he suffered from bladder cancer and various other medical conditions. Throughout the trial proceedings, Robert appeared in court in a wheelchair, looking frail in jail garb with a catheter attached. The judge was forced to have a blanket placed over Robert to cover his jail clothes and catheter bag to maintain his dignity to some degree. Lead prosecutor John Lewin crafted a strategy that linked evidence from all 3 deaths associated with Robert, arguing they formed a connected pattern of violence. "Everything starts with Kathy Durst's disappearance and death," Lewin explained, "and after that he had to kill Susan Berman because he feared she was going to talk, and then he had to kill Morris Black because Morris Black knew who he was." Robert's testimony lasted more than 3 weeks and proved devastating to his case. Under cross-examination, Robert admitted that he had lied under oath in the past and would do so again to avoid trouble. When asked directly about Susan Berman's murder, Robert made the remarkable statement, "Did you kill Susan Berman is strictly a hypothetical. I did not kill Susan Berman, but if I had, I would lie about it." On September 17, 2021, after decades of evading justice, Robert Durst was finally convicted of first-degree murder in the death of Susan Berman. Following his conviction, Robert was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole on October 14, 2021. Just 2 weeks after his sentencing, Robert was indicted by a Westchester County grand jury for the second-degree murder of his wife, Kathy Durst. This indictment came nearly 4 decades after Kathy's disappearance and represented law enforcement's confidence that they finally had sufficient evidence. Just 2 days after his sentencing for Susan Berman's murder, Robert was hospitalized with COVID-19 and placed on a ventilator. On January 10, 2022, Robert Durst died at San Joaquin General Hospital while in custody of the California Department of Corrections. He reportedly suffered cardiac arrest at 6:44 a.m. Pacific Time and was not revived. Because he died while his appeal was still pending, his conviction was automatically vacated under California law. By the time of his legal troubles in 2015, Robert had already been largely estranged from the family business for years. In 2006, recognizing the potential damage, the family had bought out his stake in the Durst Organization for $65 million. Despite the scandal, the Durst Organization continued to thrive under Douglas Durst and his nephew Jody Durst's leadership. As of 2020, Forbes estimated the overall Durst family fortune at $8.1 billion, making them the 47th richest family in the United States. The company's continued success included securing a $250 million loan from Wells Fargo and JP Morgan Chase for 1155 Avenue of the Americas in May 2025. From $3 in an immigrant's pocket to $8 billion in real estate, the Durst dynasty endures, forever marked by the heir who chose murder over mortar. And now, we'd like to see you in the comments. Before this episode, were you aware of the Durst family and this tragic storyline in their history? We can't wait to hear from you, and thanks for joining us for another episode of Old Money Luxury. Cheers.